Hello? Sorry, I'm having trouble with my microphone. I hope you can hear me now. Hey, can everyone hear me? All right, sorry about that. I was having trouble with my microphone. Um, I'm working on a personal project here. It's a mashup of all the Williams characters, or at least some of the most known. Almost finished with it. I just got to do the Bride of Pinbot here, and eventually, might be a bit, maybe in a month or so. I'm gonna release this on prints and a series of translates. But it's been a lot of fun to kind of explore the characters in my own style. And I've been trying to make room for more of these kind of like personal self-initiated projects. It's easier now, easier now because of the quarantine. Things have slowed down a little bit in terms of freelance. So I'm still booked up for a couple months, but the I'm not getting a lot of projects that need to go out right away. So it's kind of nice. I have a little more time for this kind of stuff. All right, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to start drawing. If you have any questions, let me know. I should be able to see them in this chat window, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. All right. Hey, Andrew. Yeah, so this is just a self-initiated project I'm doing. It's a mashup of a lot of Williams characters, and I'm gonna sell it on prints and probably translates too. I think Bride of Pinbot and Pinbot was probably the earliest exposure I had to pinball that I can remember. My dad was really into pinball, and as kids, we just kind of weren't. And he bought us the Pinbot Nintendo game, and I remember playing that for like just for hours and hours and hours. Probably really sucking at it, but that's like that's probably my first exposure to it because I this was when I was pretty young, and I think probably too young to really get pinball, especially because every time we went to an arcade, like we'd play Ninja Turtles arcade or X-Men, and then my dad would be playing the pinball machines. So I probably always saw the pinball machines as sort of like an adult toy, which is kind of silly to think of now. Hey Andrew, did you not hear me because the audio's cutting out? I'm sort of experimenting with the live streaming. I haven't done it in probably over 6 months or so, so I'm just sort of ironing out the kinks. Hey, Crazy J75. Yeah, this is Clip Studio Paint. This is pretty much all I use. I'll use Photoshop when I have to. Hey Rich, how's it going? Hey, thanks. Yeah, I love Clip Studio Paint. If you're watching this and you've never seen my YouTube channel before, I've got a ton of videos explaining like some of the best features of the program, and I also have a ton of custom-made brushes too, if you're interested. I actually haven't made brushes in a while. I think the last pack that I made was maybe a year ago. I'm definitely planning on making more. I think what I'm going to focus on doing from now on is, instead of making like one giant pack every year, I'm going to try to make smaller packs more regularly, like maybe one a quarter or something, and then break them up into categories that make a little more sense. And as far as affinity, I should look into that, because I do have a Photoshop brush pack, and if I remember right, I think you can just open up the brushes straight into Affinity from Photoshop. But of course, they're probably not going to act exactly as they would in Photoshop, so it probably wouldn't be too difficult to kind of go through and convert them. So yeah, appreciate that idea. I was thinking about doing the same for Procreate. Procreate is tricky because even though you can import Photoshop brushes, they don't have the same engine. So you'd have to import them and then do a lot of tweaking, which it's just a matter of trying to find the time to do that. But I definitely want to do that at some point. Hey Kevin, how you doing? I haven't talked to you in a while. I hope you're okay. Hey, Cybermax, I appreciate you buying the brushes. That really helps. Hey, replying to Greg Stevenson asking what kind of music I listen to. Um, I really like 80s metal and 90s alternative. But then some of the newer stuff I really one of my favorite bands now is The Sword. Um, I'm listening to Opeth right now, or at least I was. I kind of like atmospheric and moody sort of jam metal. That's a term I just made up. Also, sometimes I listen to video game music if I'm on a tight deadline and I need to move really fast. Like, I find that actually makes me draw faster. That's kind of embarrassing, though. Don't tell anybody I said that. Hey, crazy J75 asking where to buy the brush packs. If you go to my website, flylanddesigns.com, there's a link at the top for my shop, and you'll see them in there. There's a whole section for digital products, and I've got 3 different packs there you can check out. Thanks for asking. I see a question here from PVY Art asking, drawing tablet or display tablet, which should you buy, and any other brands besides Wacom? So I'm using the Wacom Cintiq Pro 24 inch. It's fantastic, but it's really expensive. I think it was like $2,500. I don't remember exactly, but it's a lot. I remember it being more expensive than my first car. That kind of stuck out. But I think, well, anyway, you can't go wrong with Wacom. I've never bought anything from them that didn't perform well. I've never tested any of the other ones. So I'd be reluctant to actually recommend any of the other ones, but I mean, it's been so many years since Wacom has had this technology out, so I would think the competitors have closed the gap a little bit. They have to have. So just check out reviews for those other products to see if there's anything that'll work for you. Now, I did see that Wacom recently came out with something called Wacom One, and it's sort of an entry-level Cintiq. It's, I think, 16 inches large, which I think is just right, actually. Like, I prefer the 24 inch because I really like to see like the whole image. But if you're starting out, the Wacom One might be the way to go, because I think it's only $400. Yeah, I think it's only $400. And I think the only drawbacks with that is that the resolution of the screen is larger. So the reason that's bad is that you can just kind of fit less on the screen. The palettes are larger, the text is larger. One reason I really like the Wacom Cintiq is the resolution is like ultra 5. I think it's 5K. It's really, really tight. I mean, it's actually a higher resolution than my iMac screen. It's like so tiny, which means I can fit like tons of stuff on the screen, which really helps. And I always say, if I miss someone's question, please just go ahead and ask it again, because the text or the chat window moves kind of quick. I want to answer this question by Greg Stevenson, asking, do you sketch and begin on paper, or do you do it all in Clip Studio? I used to sketch in pencil on paper first, and then I would ink digitally. But because I'm a freelancer and time is money, I moved almost completely to digital. So this image here, let me just zoom out a bit. Like this image here, everything was done digitally. I penciled it first in Clip Studio Paint, and then inked it, and then colored it. For something like this that has so many characters in it, it saves so much time to be able to work 100% digitally, because I can easily move characters around and distort them and do whatever I have to do to make them fit, and experiment a little bit. If I was doing this on paper, it would just be a nightmare, because, oh yeah, and the other reason that digital really is fantastic is, as you can see, all of these characters are overlapping each other. I'll bring this alien to the front. I've actually drawn the whole alien because I want to be able to use him in other pieces in the future. But if I was drawing this on paper, of course you couldn't do that without using just tons of different pieces of tracing paper and things like that, and it just would become a mess really quick. Oh, here, there's a comment here saying that this guy named Cybermax bought a Huion. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Huion? A Huion 18 display, and he does not recommend it. It sounds like that was a waste of money. So I would just, if you can't afford a Wacom, just really diligently do your research, because it sounds like there's a lot of copycats out there that maybe are not going to work well. And what I would be worried about happening is, if you're working on kind of a shitty device, it might be holding you back and frustrating you, and that might get in the way of you developing. That's why I always tell people, like, if you're really, really starting out, you might want to introduce as few pieces of hardware as possible and just really focus on just drawing in pencil and paper, because there's way less that can get in the way, between the art and your hand. And then once you have that a little more developed and figured out, then you can start moving to the digital stuff. There's also the iPad Pro, which is still expensive too, though. I mean, I think that's almost $1,000. I have one of those too, but I rarely use it. I use it mostly just to watch YouTube. So it's like a really expensive portable TV. Hey, it's my friend Joe Seifert asking how you do art. You start with imagination, and then you just keep going until you have the art. And then when you're done, you stop. Bye, Joe. There's a question here from Lyle himself asking how to build an illustration portfolio. I would love to kind of see where you are, like what you have so far. But I think what you want to do is don't fill your portfolio with fan art. And if you are putting a lot of fan art in your portfolio, make sure that you're actually like adding to it. Meaning, if you're going to draw SpongeBob, don't just try to draw SpongeBob as SpongeBob. Try to put a creative take on it, even if that creative take is just adding your style to it, because that can help kind of show that you have creativity if you can take something already existing and put a spin on it. So that would be one suggestion. Another one is just try, if you were making a portfolio because you want people to hire you to make things, you have to kind of draw things that clients can imagine without a lot of effort. So if you want to design a lot of t-shirts, then in your portfolio, draw artwork that looks good on a t-shirt and actually show it mocked up on a shirt. Same with product design. If you want to do logos, if you want to do packaging design, even if no one has hired you, just go ahead and like design a fake product. And that'll get you a lot farther, I think, than just drawing like cool characters and like landscapes and scenery and that kind of stuff, unless that's what you want to do. If you want to be a character artist, concept artist, then that's what you got to focus on. Someone's recommending the XP pen. That's interesting, but I remember looking into that, and I don't think it works with a Mac, right? I think that only works with Windows. Could be wrong. I see a question here about Fiverr. Where is the question? Let me read. Hold on. Can you give me some advice on doing custom design on Fiverr? All right. So here's my opinion on Fiverr. A lot of the artists on Fiverr, artists in quotation marks, actually steal my artwork, and they steal the artwork of other people. They'll actually just put it in their portfolio. And I know this because customers will contact me and they'll say, hey, I hired this guy on Fiverr for $15 to design my logo, and it turns out it was your logo or your image. And they do that because you can't design artwork for $15. You can't design it for $30. You can't design it for $50. So the only way to do it is to either cheat someone else or to cheat yourself. Even when I was in college, doing like little freelance gigs on the side, my artwork sucked back then. I mean, it was just awful, right? But I don't remember ever charging like even under $150. I mean, the idea of doing artwork for anybody, custom artwork for a logo that they are going to own as the face of their business forever, for under $100 is kind of baffling to me. And I do understand that I should have led with the caveat that I get that a lot of the people on Fiverr are from different countries where the currency is different, and maybe $100, maybe $15, maybe $30 is a lot. But I think your time, unless you were like desperate for money, your time would be way, way better spent on sitting down and spending a few years making a really good portfolio. And then you can skip that whole stage where you have to charge $30 for a logo. You know, if you have the work, you'll be able to find good clients, and you don't need them. You don't need the Fiverr clients. You can start charging $300 and then $500 and then $700 and then $1,000, and you just keep going from there. Because I think what happens if you start basing your career on Fiverr or any kind of art service where you're just expected to create something for $15, $30 or whatever it is, you're gonna train yourself to take these like crazy shortcuts, and maybe even steal some stuff or trace or copy, and you're not going to ever be able to make anything good. You're just going to make things that are passable, right? So I don't know, I just don't see how you can ever grow if that's what you're doing. And when I say you, I'm not calling you out personally. I'm just saying, just the artists who just make their way of life on Fiverr, or there's another one that's like a crowdsourcing platform, which is even worse. I can't remember what it's called, but the way that one works is a company says, "Hey, I need a logo," and then 100 designers make a logo, and they just pick the one that they want. And I think a lot of times what those guys don't realize is that a lot of these companies use those services never intending to actually buy the logo. They just use it to get sketches, to get concepts, and then they hire a real artist to carry it through. Because I've gotten those emails where people say, "Hey, I ran a crowd. What is it called? Damn it! This is gonna drive me nuts." I don't remember what it is. It's some kind of, it's like design crowd. I don't know what it is. But I've had people contact me saying, "Here's 100 sketches that I got from this website. You know, I like these 3 sketches. Can you make this into our logo?" And I always say no, because I don't know where those came from. I don't want to get into a situation where I'm drawing something that the concept belonged to someone else, you know? So anyway, I hope that answered your question without coming across too much as a dick. I'm alright with coming across a little bit as a dick, but not too much. Yeah, it's 99 Designs. That's what it is. Yes. 99 Designs in particular, I would really advise you to stay away from that one, because with that one, at least with Fiverr, you're getting paid for your work. With 99 Designs, everything is a contest. You might get paid, you might not. And, if you're going to enter a contest, you want to, which I'm not opposed to contests. It's just the prize has to be worth it. So if you're going to enter a contest, the prize should be like 3 or 4 times the amount you would get paid normally. So you're gambling a bit, but at least if you win, there's a great payoff, you know? There's a comment here from Philip talking again about the XP pen, saying the only downside is it doesn't support tilt, but you don't use it that much anyway. I'm with you. I don't think I ever use tilt. I find tilt is actually really distracting because when I'm drawing on the Wacom, I normally have the canvas or the Wacom tablet like turned to maybe 40 degrees. So the angle that I'm drawing at is always kind of like it's always a weird angle. It's different than if I were just holding a pencil on paper. So every time I come across a setting where it's set up for tilt, like it feels really unnatural and weird. I see a question here about, do I use blending modes? I do sometimes. I'm actually using it right now. This brush that I'm using I'm not doing it on the layer. The layer mode is set to normal, but the brush blending mode is it's called Add Glow. It's basically the same as what is it? Is it Glow Dodge in Photoshop? And I use this sparingly. You don't want to use it all the time when you're doing highlights because things start to look unnatural. But when I'm doing something like this, like metal, I will use the Glow Dodge brush because it kind of helps speed things up because you don't have to constantly switch colors. And what it's doing is basically I have like a yellow color and it's adding the yellow color as a highlight to everything I already have laid down on this blue. I have a question here asking what size and resolution is your canvas? I'll normally ink at 600 DPI, which is kind of overkill, but I find that in Clip Studio Paint that really results in a really nice smooth line. Then when I'm ready to color it, I reduce it down to 300 DPI. Right now, I'm working at 400 DPI because I'm planning on also printing this on a giant, like, 6-foot banner. So I wanted to really make sure that the resolution was kind of overkill for that purpose. And I'm working, the document is 28 inches wide, which is also really big. I do not always work at that size. If this were for a t-shirt, I basically would just be working at the size of the t-shirt. So if the final t-shirt's going to be 20 inches tall, then the document would be 20 inches tall. And I've got a pretty fast iMac that I'm working on right now. So I don't think everybody would be able to work at this size so smoothly. But I have noticed that Clip Studio Paint like really handles large files a lot better than Photoshop does. My guess would just be because Photoshop's gotten a kind of bloated. Look at these sexy robot legs. All right. I think I'm almost done with her. I think I'm gonna add one more level of shading here in some areas. Hey, Greg. Greg was saying my artwork reminds him of the heavy metal magazines. That's not a coincidence. Like, I learned to draw from those magazines. I had not all of them. I had a lot of them, and I would just sit there and draw from them. I love that. I love that era. They just made a heavy metal pinball machine, actually, with some really cool artwork on it. Hey, my friend Joe Cypher's got a really good question here, and then he's got a really bad question. So I'm going to start with the really good question. Asking basically, what are the common misunderstandings that clients who contact me have about graphic design at my level, whatever that means? Well, I guess the problem with what we do, like if you want to get an oil change in your town, right? Some places are going to charge like $1 less, $2 less. They might throw in tire rotation or something like that. But the prices are generally the same because the service is generally the same, right? You can't have a guy charging $100 for an oil change because he's going to go out of business. Doesn't matter how good he is at it, because even a bad oil change is still fine. Oh Jesus, don't quote me on that one. But with artwork, all of our prices are just totally made up. They're all completely based on your demand. So for me, the way that my pricing has evolved is basically there came a time where I had basically too much work. I had way more clients calling me than I could deal with. And I was just talking to an artist the other day about this, because he was kind of posting that he can't accept any new jobs anymore for the rest of the month because he's booked up. And that's exactly when you want to raise your prices, because if you've got that if you have so much work that you can't keep up with it and you find yourself staying up every night, it means, yes, you're good, but it also probably means that you're not charging enough. Like you are basically not following the law of supply and demand. Okay? So there are no hard and fast rules about what an artist can charge. There's research you can do, for sure, but you just have to base it on your own demand. All right? So my prices can actually vary throughout the year. I don't have a price list that I just send to people. There are some months where we are so busy, luckily, that I might throw out really, really high prices, like prices that I've never gotten before. Most likely, they don't say yes, they move on. But sometimes they do say yes. And if they start saying yes enough, well, now that's your new price, So going back to the question, I think what a lot of clients don't understand when they contact me, because sometimes I'm in a weird position because the style of artwork I work in it's sort of appealing to like t-shirts and like logos, album covers, things that don't typically pay as much as like clients, like advertising clients, for example. So I will attract in the same day like clients looking to spend $75 and then clients looking to spend like $2,000 for essentially the same exact service. They're expecting the exact same drawing. The guy who wants to pay $75 and the guy who wants to pay $2,000, in their heads, they're going to want the same quality of image, right? So when you tell them your price, they don't, a lot of times they don't understand why the last guy they talked to, who's also pretty good, was only charging 200, and now I want whatever. I'm not going to say what my price is. But so I don't know. You have to, there are no golden rules about it. You just have to experiment with your pricing. I know a lot of artists that basically have either published their pricing list, which I think is a really bad idea, or they just, in their minds, they just have a set price that everything they do is always at that price. And then they get so booked up and busy that their work starts to suffer, their life starts to suffer, and they're just wondering why. And so it's like a delicate line you got to walk, because sometimes you're really popular because you're really good, but sometimes you're really popular because you're not charging enough. And so you just have to constantly monitor those two things. And what was that? So, follow-up question: if you had the choice to throw any food item at the wall, what would it be? Probably a slice of pizza. I think that would probably have a satisfying impact. All right, I think I've noodled this enough. It's probably time to go. But I appreciate everybody watching and asking questions. I'm going to try to set this up so I can maybe live stream weekly again. I really enjoyed doing it, but it just things got in the way. But I'm going to try to make an effort to do more of it. So I appreciate it, and have a great day and stay safe. And don't touch me.